there's a lot about the legal system that puts us into a rage. In fact, almost you could say murderous rage for many, because it does seem to be the cause for a lot of evil things today. And what is also infuriating about this is that the thing about the legal system is that much of it is very logical and very sensible, very agreeable. It's a very good system. And what makes the corruption in the legal system is not this grand orchestrated network of things that are all nonsensical, but more like some very key little areas that were likely deliberately made to mess up the system throughout everywhere, and turning ordinary people into an element of corruption, not because they're evil, but because they're just not aware of what they're doing when they're doing it. There's a lot of common sense and a lot of important logic that goes into our legal system. And so what I want to take is a step back today and just look at it from a bird's eye view, the whole thing altogether. And so I'm going to start with the category of God's law. And so you could say that the law is essentially deistic, not atheistic, if we were going to refer to God's law. Now, even if you were an atheist, you could say that there's a category of laws that fits this concept. And we're talking about the laws of nature, the laws that you can't really change, even philosophical laws that are just principles that can't really be denied. You can't have a circle square, for example. And so the lawyer that would practice God's law from the best disciplines that we would have today is a physicist. And so a physicist can practice God's law by understanding the laws that do exist in that category, and also negotiating the terms by having a deeper insight into what those terms mean, right? So while actually a physicist would be like an archiver of God's law, an engineer would be a proponent of God's law. Now, in order to follow God's law, we have to have trust. Okay, so in the natural world, in the human world, everywhere, there are trusts. A bear that relies on the fish in the sea in order to survive will have trust that there continues to be fish in that sea. A you know a frog that sits on a pond will have trust that there's plenty of bugs for it to catch in order to survive. We have to trust things in order for us to continue. I will walk down the street every day trusting that there isn't very much reason for somebody to shoot me in the head, right? And so trust law really is about trust. It's not that we trust absolutely everything, but that we simply cannot do things without extending some trust here and there. And so trust law really does become a very important technical term in certain areas of law. But the trust is really much superior to all other laws below it. And so you can have trusts for all kinds of things. You can have trusts for open some windows at night. You can have trusts for why you drive your car down a certain road, and you can have trusts arranged with people. And now that does not necessarily mean that they are without consequence by betraying your trust, but it is saying that there are certain trusts that you've established with other people. So a trust law is a trust is extending trust, exactly that. Now, in any society where you have a congregation of people or of living things, whatever it is, you're going to have a whole network of trusts. The trusts are going to be exchanged everywhere in order to do things, in order to grow food, in order to build houses. You're going to extend trusts everywhere. And so when you have a culmination of trusts put together, you have common law. And common law is just people or intelligent beings gathering together, consenting on the trusts that they've established, and building up this community, this network of ideas, of the way that they do things and the way that everything works in their society. So they can have agreements, but it's really just about the way that they do things. And so you can see common law in villages and any sort of culture. You will see common law. Now, once we use language to make our agreements, we start to do contract law. And contracts are typically written agreements, but they can be verbal. They can be a lot of different forms of a contract. Is basically showing that you agreed to something, or someone agreed to something with certainty, that it isn't just a something that they're used to doing. It's a real contract. And so it kind of extends, from God's law you have a trust, and putting trust together you can have a certain common law, and then within common law you can have contracts. And within contract, when you put a society doing contracts together, you can have commerce law. Now, commerce law also makes sense, because once you're having contracts with each other and you're exchanging goods and services, and you're paying, you're receiving, all of those things, you develop a commerce. So whereas common law is the society for trusts, commerce law is the society for contracts. All right, and so they all exist within each other, and they all have very important things to say about how the laws are established. The major problem is that in our modern day, almost no one has ever existed outside of commerce law. And the other issue is that commerce law doesn't mean one single set of rules and expectations for one single society. It can have many different societies practicing many different types of common law, of commerce law, just the same way that common law could be made up of many different societies practicing many different types of common law within their trusts. And so the trickery that we end up falling into today is that rather than seeing the option of exiting one commercial code and going into another commercial code here, so rather than us realizing that we can go from here up to here, we remain in this box alone. And we do get lots of options here. We get this box or this box or this box, and we get told we could transfer here, and we can do things over there, and we could jump over here, and we could do all of these things. But lawyers and accountants and all of the quote experts in law that we are told by conventional media is the established way of law, they are almost never given a glimpse of the idea that there could be something that exists outside this box and goes out over here. And those that do make it here, there's a media buzz that will try to convince everyone that it's just a bunch of wackos. The wackos that have exited out here, they're just a bunch of weirdos, right? People, some freak who decided he's gonna make his own country, and he's like some weird hermit. You see that in the media all the time. Any sort of fiction, they'll never make it look like some sort of sane person. It's always some like weird freak that they'll put in a TV show who like claims to have his own country, when in fact this is exactly what you can do. You can exit this commercial code and you can make your own commercial code. So without seeing this picture, it's hard to get the picture of what happens next. All of the technical information and all of the things that we're going to go into, talking about the different things that you can do to yourself to exit that system. Before we go there, it's important to really just picture this and understand where you're going in it, because we employ everything. We employ the boxes in here, we employ the boxes out over here, and we utilize the laws that are written all over this area in order to help us navigate to where we want to go. And it truly seems the most ideal, the really best thing you can do for yourself is to get out of this box and into your own. And that's really the large goal of the people in this movement today. So some have called it the freedom movement because you're getting freedom out of that box. Really ignorant people will use the phrase sovereign citizen because that is the media buzzword that has been invented in order to try and destroy the whole idea. Sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. You're saying sovereign, which is like a king, and citizen, which is essentially like a slave. But a common word that's used today is a national, because that's really what you're getting at when you're exiting this box and you're going into this. You're leaving the nation that's been purportedly built for you and only giving you these little options inside, and you're making your own. See you next video.